Hey gang, Raj here, and today I'm talking about my new pedal board for fly out dates and any other instance where I need a small and lightweight rig. And it's not a pedal board at all, it's a iPad mini along with Positive Grid's Jam Up Pro, and I'll be using an Apogee 1 as an interface between my guitar and the iPad and also output to the amp, along with iRig's Blue Board, which is a Bluetooth, wireless Bluetooth pedal board, 4-button, and a Roland EV5, which is an old expression pedal that I had laying around, which hooks into one of the two slots on the iRig Blue Board, and a sustain pedal that I use for a momentary switch to trigger on the other expression pedal input. Alrighty? So here's all that stuff set up as it would be on a gig for me. And you may be saying that's no smaller than a small pedal board, and you'd be right. But it travels much better. It's much lighter, and it's much more flexible simply because you can switch between presets and assign whatever pedals you want to that preset. So you have a lot more at your disposal than if you were just to be carrying 4 or 5 pedals on a small board that would probably still weigh 20 pounds. Okay, so this is not going to be a full tutorial by any means. There's a lot of videos out there to show you how to set everything up. This is just going to be kind of a description of what I did for my rig. I'm usually a pretty simple pedal guy, and you can see the pedals that I have set up here. The noise gate is on there because the Apogee tends to be a little ground loopy, noisy when it's plugged in, and it pretty much needs to be plugged in for a full 90-minute, 2-hour set. The batteries usually don't last that long. So you can see I've got my wah pedal here after the noise gate, wah pedal, stomp box, which changes depending on what amp I'm playing on. This amp emulator that you can port over from Bias, which is kind of the sister app, also owned by Positive Grid. I'm not using it. If it was active, it would be highlighted. Almost all the time I'm using a real amp with backline, so I'm not using that. I'm just using it as a pedal board. The modulation pedal is a tremolo, and actually I'm only using this, and I'll get to this later, but I'm only using this as a way to bring the volume down a little bit when the wah pedal is inactive, which sounds kind of strange, but the volume, there's no volume control on the wah, and the boost in the mid-range is pretty hot. So when I trigger the wah pedal, both of these modulation pedals get triggered at the same time, and this, even though it doesn't look like the levels changed at all, that setting when active is actually brings the volume down a little bit. So, and then moving on, my delay is pretty simple, and set to BPM so that I can have tap tempo, and then the reverb is their spring reverb, and that's always on for me. So one thing I'd suggest is if you go to settings here and you pull up MIDI settings, which is this is kind of where you get all your pedal board stuff set up. When you go to MIDI control assignments, by default there are a lot of things that are assigned to specific MIDI channels. I would delete all of them and start from scratch. That's what I ended up doing, because there were so many, and they were relatively random, that I was triggering multiple things at once that I didn't mean to be triggering. So I just erased them all, and it's very simple to assign new controls. You just go into add new control assignment, and you choose whatever you want. These are sub menus here for toggling all your effects, the effect categories on and off, and then within that, and then beyond that, there's cry control, volume control. Within your utility settings, you've got tap tempo, tuner, and there's a bunch. Again, not a full tutorial, but once you find something you want, let's just go. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me go back here. This is just a for instance to kind of show you how they're all done. You go to add control assignment. Let's say I wanted to toggle the filter. You hit MIDI learn, and then once your pedal's hooked up and all connected and talking, you just hit the pedal you want to trigger that one thing, and it's done. The only problem you might run into is the same one I did, which is, you're triggering multiple things at once, and then you have to kind of go back and make sure that there's nothing that's being replicated in terms of your MIDI channel numbers. But that's the basic way that you assign those things. I'm going to switch over to, let's see here where I put it. No, I don't want to update. No, remind me later. Blueboard is the iRig software, and so it's searching right now. I'm going to turn the pedal on, which is just a switch on the bottom, and tap to connect. Hit your board, and it'll connect. Boom. So this is the preset I have. One thing I don't like about this is that so far I haven't figured out a way to actually share presets between devices. I have all the same stuff on my iPhone, but I had to build this from scratch on both to be the same. So, it's similar here. It's very simple to change your MIDI channel, and some of these things are really weird. This is obviously assigned to 4 here. I don't know why it's reading 1, but suffice to say it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 extension 1, 5 extension 2. I think this is just some kind of glitch, but when you click on it, it does show you the right number. So anyway, that's all I really do in the Blueboard software. Everything else is just, it automatically sees it within Jam Up Pro. And so with that said, I'll show you some of the switching between effects. I'm going to run through some of these effects, and this is just the microphone on the iPhone, so it's not going to be great, but I want to demonstrate the switching. All the effects, the reverb, and everything else you'll hear are coming from Jam Up. So this is clean. This is on a Tele. That's a really long and fairly heavy verb. This is a patch I've got that's kind of designed to have a pretty long verb, but so here comes the stomp box, and I'm gonna sustain a note, and you can hear when it pops on. And it might be worth noting that it pops on when you release the pedal. So there may be a way to change that to when you hit the pedal. I don't know. It hasn't bothered me. I haven't really looked into it, but it's pretty fast. You can hear very, very little delay. So speaking of delay, here's my. Oh, that's a really fast tap. So slow the tap down. I got the tap set to 8s. That takes a little bit of doing. So it's kind of hard to hear with the reverb, but and then the wah, again, it's going to trigger both the wah and the tremolo pedal, and probably should have done this to begin with. Oh. You know what? That just showed me I've got a problem. This should not have any sound coming out of it. So I'm going to show you one more thing before I go here. All right. So there should have been sound coming out when I went to the tuner. All the sound from Jam Up is muted. So why was there sound? Well, this is another problem that you probably run into depending on what interface you have. Back in the Maestro software, in the mixer portion, and you can see right here, you've got microphone, which we're not using at all, instrument, and software return. Software return is Jam Up and whatever else you might have running. You can see that my instrument level is up, and that's where I went wrong. That needs to be all the way down for the sound of the guitar to be muted, and so that you only have the software return coming out of the Maestro. I must have left it on for something else, but that's a good thing to keep in mind, because otherwise you're going to have two sounds coming out. Maybe that's kind of cool. You could blend your clean with your affected, but at any rate, that wasn't my intention. So if I go back to positive grid now, and I hit the button for the tuner, mutes. There you go. That's how I'm using it. Hope it helps.